Another episode of
The Love Change Podcast.
the Love Change Podcast.
Push
Still working on a jingle.
Yeah, we are. If anyone has ideas, please share.
If you don't know, you can follow us on YouTube, on Spotify, on everywhere, basically. Anchor, all the RSS.
You can always decide if you want to have with video or just voice. So if you want to see us geeking around live and in with video, then YouTube is best.
Doesn't need to be live. So if you're tuning in, you like the concept of change being the only constant in life. There's always change. I like to phrase it as waves of change. So sometimes the sea is a bit like mellow and calm, and sometimes it's a furious, splashy splash, tsunami level, crushing you.
Right.
Still, you care about change. You like the water. You like to get wet, and you're tuning in with us because we like to get messy, and we don't shy away from sharing the
nitty gritty. Haven't heard that for a while.
nitty gritty parts of change.
Yeah, but honestly, super taboo, free, honest, raw. We don't hide away the ugly parts. Pretty much try to dive into them as well and share as much as we can of those.
Just as much beauty in our scars and scruffs.
Yeah.
Instead of just admiring shiny and polished people presentations.
Versions.
Today, we're talking about attitude. So we have thinkers and doers. We have
control freaks and doers.
I think you have control freaks and people who are like loosey-goosey. I don't know what you would call them.
Yeah.
It's not per se that if you're not a control freak that you're a doer.
But not to just do it. The control freak doesn't do just do it. The control freak makes sure that it's good and then does it.
Yeah, or doesn't do it.
Yep.
Because there is no control. Reason why we're addressing this topic is it's a big part of going through change. If change is upon you and you have to deal with it. If you're sitting and pondering and thinking and scheming and looking at all the possible options that you have and you're like, oh, where to begin, what to do.
Needs to be perfect.
One side of the spectrum. Other side of the spectrum, you're like, this was the first thing that came into my mind and I didn't consider that there would be other options and I just started off doing it. And now I'm here and I'm not even sure whether I wanted to be here, but I just opened the first door.
Yeah.
That's one side of it when you're dealing with stuff. The other side of it is when you have something in your mind. You want to start a new career, you want to find a new purpose, whatever it is, some change that you have a longing for, you have a certain desire. Do you get up and think of what is the first step I can take and take it? Or do you spend about 6 months to a lifetime thinking about it? And also just remaining stuck in your head. Why is that important? This balance between these two forces? What do you think, Kay? Why is this important?
Me?
You.
Well, I think it's really important to consider both and then I think according to the situation, choose what is a better option, honestly. I don't think that one is bad or one is good, but to really like look at the things and be like, is that super important to spend 6 months of brain work and then launch, or can I just do and test and go ahead? You know, I think to look at the bigger scheme of things and then kind of like decide which side to choose, but really the consciousness of deciding how to, I think, or which attitude to choose, I think that's pretty important for me.
What do you mean?
Yeah, to really like consciously decide for the attitude for which side to choose and like really be like, hey, can I just do it and like just drop a first draft for something and be like, okay, let people just take it apart, it's good, so I get feedback? Or do I need to like perfection it before
And what's the difference between those two attitudes in your?
Definitely time. It's a big time factor.
Mhm.
But also the first one to just do it is like being willing to be criticized,
Mm,
to like be seen as not perfect,
mm.
be seen as, well, I mean, someone can say, hey, this is really crap, sorry, it's just nonsense, this is just
Go
bullshit.
go away.
Yeah, exactly, which like you can take personally, right, if it's like your area of expertise or whatever.
Mm,
So you gotta be willing to like also face those things, while on the other hand, if you make something super super long perfectly, then most probably you will not hit that wall. But on the other hand, if that happens, then you'll be like, damn, I spent 6 months of on perfecting that,
mm,
and now I get the feedback that actually it's too late for the market, for example, because you have just been really slowing down your process.
mm.
So I think it's really worth considering, and that's kind of like my yeah, my idea of like, be conscious about which road you choose, which
I think
attitude you
it's
choose.
weird why you place it under a market perspective. Like it's
Yeah.
if you would frame it back to your personal life,
Mm-hmm.
then you have plenty of people who are thinking about changes in their life that they, I don't know, want to live in a different city, or
Yeah.
they're looking for a different haircut, basic things. I want to change my diet because
Yeah.
I'm eating all this sugar and it's crashing me. And then I start reading about it and I'm researching it and I'm deep into Wikipedia and YouTube, and that's one side of
Two
it.
months gone.
Yeah, that's one side of it. Or you're just like, stop eating sugar, see what happens.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm like, in that perspective, there is no criticism, or what you mentioned in like
Yeah.
the market aspect. Still, what is the difference between those two attitudes?
My opinion is more the gut, like the, I'm gonna change now because I feel sugar is not doing me good and I really hate how I feel in the afternoon.
Mm.
It's more a gut decision. Be like, I'm just gonna stop it now. And the other one is more a head decision. Be like, yeah, but I'm not sure it's really good for me, so let me research first. I would say that's for me the best explanation for both. What do you think, Amor? How would you keep them apart?
Um, I think one attitude, which is more thinking and planning, and it's good for long term things, is very related to yeah, some fear of failure,
Yeah.
not per se criticism as part of it. You can also just the biggest example I can make is doodling on a piece of paper with a pen.
Okay.
A doer just doodles.
Yeah.
A thinker sits, looks at the paper, looks at his pen, thinks about what is
Mm.
this moment going to represent in his catalog of all doodles ever made, and whether it's the right alignments of the stars, and
Mm.
then you're floating away because there is this feeling of whatever I touch must be gold.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
my level of standard, like, I think the difference between the two is like maybe a doer is way more experimental.
Yeah.
I did that. I'm not proud of it, but I did it, and I did that, and that was fun. I learned a lot, and I did
Mm-hmm.
that, and I'm not gonna do that ever again because I burned my ass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
um,
But
so
you
it's
also gotta be willing to like expose that side that it's gonna be crap.
or not. You can do it
Yeah.
in secret, but it is the attitude towards trial and error. So you're
I
really
love that.
invested in trying and finding out what goes wrong and what goes well
Mm.
out of experience, while
Yeah.
a thinker attitude is more,
Thinking those scenarios through
yeah,
before.
scenario planning and analysis, and just like,
Pro contrast.
and it's uh, a powerful attitude,
Mm-hmm.
um, especially in that, and that's why the topic is interesting, because we're talking about dealing with unknown and uncertain situations.
Yep.
scenario planning is there for dealing with uncertainty and different variables,
Mm-hmm.
and that is a complete thinking approach.
Absolutely.
Uh, a doer actually limits. If you're like, I'm gonna wear blue the rest of the year, it's like a doing attitude, like blue all the way.
Yeah.
You limit your options because every day again you get to decide whether
Mm-hmm.
blue is the best option for you that day.
Gosh, that's so good. You gotta
And
limit your options.
yeah,
That is really
and
good.
I think that's why the fusion of the two attitudes is actually good. And in my perspective, and this is where it gets complicated, um,
Listen carefully.
thinking and reflecting on stuff is always past related.
Yep.
So you might even limit yourself as a thinker because of past experiences.
Yeah, you gotta base it on something.
And you cannot predict the future, you can only
Yeah.
speculate. And I think if you're a doer with a
But if
high,
you're a thinker, you want to back it up with some data.
yeah, and that's always going to be based on the past. You don't have
Mm-hmm.
data from the future. And especially
Mm-hmm.
nowadays, with all the change that's coming towards us that we've never experienced before, all the old data sets are obsolete. If you look at climate change, if you
Yeah.
look at the economic models, if you look at technology and the rapid improvement and speed of these
Mm-hmm.
things, it's not linear growth, it's exponential. So as
Yeah.
a thinker, you actually think linearly and you like offset it after 7 steps, you're off 90%. And
Mm-hmm.
as a doer, I don't think you're gonna be better off in that sense. Uh,
You're more agile. Would you agree on that? That if you see something doesn't work, you're way more agile to change. So you're like within those 7 steps, you're
mm,
not gonna be 90% off because you're gonna change each step
mm,
because you see, oh, this is actually going this direction. I gotta change.
I agree on that, but I'm not sure if a lot of time, and I'm curious about your opinion on that as well. People with a just do it attitude are actually pretty linear, goal orientated, not too much in the adjustment camp, or are they?
I don't know. I
What
think,
camp would you place yourself first of all? Make it
honestly, it's
personal.
super difficult. Really, I find it really difficult. I was reflecting today about it, and I was like, it really depends. But
Give 3 scenarios.
3 scenarios. I think I would place myself more in the doer attitude.
Where?
In the, yeah, maybe more in the middle. Like if I look at my jobs in the past,
Mm,
I'll be like with 1 feet in the past because I needed data to back up what I was doing. To be
mm,
like, look, those fashion pieces were really successful. We
yeah.
gotta implement this. But at the same time, the other foot was in the future because I was like, if we repeat what we had that was successful, it's gonna be in the market in a year. It's not gonna be successful by then. So what is the future version of that?
Mm,
So it was like half half, but I needed data to back it up because otherwise I would not get it approved
mm,
when I get the budgets, etc. So kind of like in the middle. When I look at me founding my own company, I'm like, oh my gosh, spent 6 months in my head being like super into the game of perfecting it before launching the online shop. And I'm like, why actually was it like that? Like I really wouldn't consider myself being this much of a head person and like really planning person.
mm,
That's why I'm like, but in general I would say more of a doer. Like I don't know if you agree on that part, that for me the doer mindset is more a gut feeling.
mm.
And
Intuition thing.
yeah, and I'm really more the intuition person. I'm like, if that
Mm.
feels right, I'm doing it. So I would place myself kinda closer
And
to
these were
that
all
one.
work examples. If you look at
Yeah,
your personal life.
very much doer. I guess that maybe was also a reason why work was sometimes such a struggle, because I was really way more forced to be in my head,
Mm.
and I
Yeah,
was
of
like,
course.
yeah, the things I would decide that were gut feeling,
Mm.
things for the collection that were really coming from my gut were actually really successful. because like
No.
you learn that intuitional part.
Mm.
So I think, yeah, more in that camp
And
as
if you
a.
reflect on big changes in your life, were you thinking about them for
Oh
a
my
long
gosh,
time?
never.
No.
Literally never.
Okay.
Every job offer I got,
Yeah.
I got plenty job offers, but the ones that I would decide for was really absolute gut feeling. Like, wow, this just feels right. The interview was amazing. I really like the vibe.
Yeah.
Completely gut related.
That's nice.
How about you? Where would you place yourself, in which camp? Thinking or doing?
I definitely think about stuff,
Mm-hmm.
um, but I'm mostly thinking about how to do things,
Yeah.
not per se if to do them. I'm pretty. I think one thing that I noticed in the past, big difference between me and some people was the time between taking a decision and executing on it. For me, is like they're like
I was like, what you gonna say?
yeah, they're
And you're like,
together. Like if a
okay.
decision is
Yeah.
made, then it is also done.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know that there are plenty of people who might decide a thing and then contemplate on a decision that they
Gosh.
made, plenty doubting the pros and the cons. So actually, it's not even a decision process
Mm-hmm.
anymore. It's just the execution that is postponed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a big difference between a doer and a thinker, is that they just minimize the uh, delta in time of execution. You're just like, decision is made, let's get it done, because then we see what the outcome of that
It's gonna be.
decision is,
Yeah.
and then we can evaluate, and then we can make another decision. While if you're like, oh, I made a decision, but it's kind of scary. What if this? What if that? What if such? What if so? So you just end up not executing on it.
Yeah, that is all obsolete. That's the whole point. Like,
And
the
I
decision.
understand, because I was having a coaching session for myself today about outsourcing more things,
Mm-hmm.
that I actually realized, hey, I've decided to outsource most things,
Mm-hmm.
but I am postponing on executing.
Really?
Yeah, and
Okay, that's interesting.
yeah, so that's
How
a
come?
decision I made last week,
Mm-hmm.
and I embarked on having conversations with people to outsource work to,
Yeah.
and started searching, but didn't push through because it didn't feel right. The people I was
Okay, but
communicating with, the
then,
people I was communicating with.
yeah.
But I was struggling with it because I was like, it doesn't feel right, but I don't know if it isn't right. So,
Ah.
so today
Or
after
if you're
that,
just making it up,
yeah,
that it doesn't
yeah,
feel right.
yeah.
Ah, okay, that's interesting.
So today after that conversation, I just pushed the button. I'm like, hey, you guy, do this for me. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
boom, briefing. 4 hours later, guy's not fit for the job. Cancel. Boom.
That's
Next
why you've
person.
been cursing like
Yeah,
an old man.
yeah. I
That's
was
why you've
like,
been cursing like an old man in front of the computer.
yeah.
I
It's
was
like,
like, what's
I
going on?
understand what you need. Let me do it. And then like 3 hours later, what
No,
am I?
nada.
What am I supposed to do? Actually, I'm like, oh, you don't see the
Okay.
problem, then you cannot help with the solution.
Yeah.
And again, that is work related. But if we frame it in the construct of change, um, stepping out of the brave space collaboration,
Hmm.
for me, oh, what if I've been spending so much time building the foundation of something that might be very successful,
Has that been going on in your head?
not per se whether it will be successful or not, but more like, why would you stop after investing
Such long time.
such long time? Why didn't you come to
Mm.
this decision earlier? Like a whole bunch of um,
Scenarios?
excuses to maybe stay away from a difficult conversation,
Mm.
or because I think that's also why one might refrain in thinking
Hmm.
more than doing, because doing isn't always pretty. and it's
No,
definitely not always comfortable.
no, has
As
consequences.
yeah, as much as there is discomfort in thinking about stuff all the time, that you're like,
Stays in here. Stays in the realm of your
hey,
head.
how you doing? Yeah, I'm doing good. Not like, oh, I just had a horrible conversation because I made
Mhm.
a decision to fire somebody or to quit
Yeah,
something and to like break up and
yeah,
just like us wanting to move to Colombia. Everybody who we know and loves us is like, yeah,
yeah.
that is also, we could have been thinking about it quietly.
Not share it.
Yeah, and wonder what it would be like.
Mm.
And now we know it's not going to be well received
Fun.
in that sense, and people are happy for us. I get that,
Mm.
and everybody like so. So I think the doer and the thinker, I think definitely it really is best resembled also with this man in the arena.
Mm.
You're there, you're
Yeah,
getting
the
dirty.
exposure, I definitely agree on that. Like when you do, you
Yeah.
also gotta face the consequences.
It's a
It
very
can be huge. You can go
vulnerable
bankrupt. You can,
attitude. Yeah, the attitude is
yeah.
one that is not shying away from pain, discomfort,
Hmm.
the maybe disappointment, maybe um, yeah, whatever framing of didn't go well.
Yeah, agree.
You're willing to deal with that, and that is, I think, why it's important to deal with the attitude part of it.
Hmm.
So when you say actually in my work I was told to be more thinking,
Hmm.
you choose for that job,
Yeah,
you choose for the studies, um, you made a whole bunch of choices to get to that place.
yeah.
Those were all thinking choices or not? What were they
Also,
based on?
very much field choices.
Okay.
Yeah, I was really. Yeah, it was also field choices. It felt like something I would get excited about, and it got me excited for a long time, for sure.
Of course, no, it's not like it's not exciting, but I don't think like you can say a doer doesn't think. A doer definitely thinks things through, but way more ad hoc. Like right now, we're gonna do this thing. What are the best options?
Yeah,
Uh, it's almost like the thinker can postpone his deadline
yeah.
more or better than a doer. A doer is like, okay, we got an hour to think,
Hmm.
and then we're gonna do this thing.
Yeah, agree. But still, like, yeah, I don't know. Would you? Yeah, I'm not. I absolutely agree that someone that is doing is also thinking about it, but it's also a more speed process, It's like you execute, like you think, but at the same time you decide that you're gonna execute. So like the process is just quicker. The
There is
thinking
there
part
is
is
no
smaller
getting
than,
there is no getting away from the execution.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that's the biggest difference.
yeah,
Like when you make a decision that something
yeah,
you want something to happen,
yeah.
um,
That's just it.
and it has a certain time and point in
Mm-hmm.
space. You can think all you want about it, but by then it's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
And you can
And you're gonna
adjust. You can
create the
adjust until
circumstances.
the last moment,
Yeah,
but you are not gonna stop the execution because of a thinking process.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're
You kind of like you overstep that border. Even if you would think, you can think all scenarios before, but you'll be like, this needs to be done by then, this needs to be decided by then, whatever, execute it.
best example, us deciding to move in together.
Yeah,
First
super valid decision.
conversation, no, first conversation, I don't know, in March.
Yeah,
Then the conversation was like, when will it happen?
yeah,
You got 2 months of notice for your house.
One actually.
You had 1 month.
Yeah.
You were like, I want to postpone it and do it next month.
Hmm.
And I
Oh my
was,
gosh, yeah, I remember.
remember?
Yeah, I do.
You were like, it's easier for my housemates to find a place that way.
Yeah.
I was like, what's the difference now or a month from now? Still the same dynamic.
Yeah.
Okay, push through. And all the thoughts that
Yeah.
you might have been going through, thinking whether it's too quick or not, what is the place like, what's going to be like living with this guy, etc. You are free to think all those thoughts.
Yeah.
It's not like you stopped thinking them.
But the choice was made.
And the execution date was set.
Yeah, agree.
So the stuff was being sold, the house was being emptied, the van was being rented, the lift was going to be there.
Yeah.
And by then, people would be there to help and it would be done.
Yeah. Would you agree on the like decision and execution is like tied together?
For?
Yeah, it's basically for someone who is like more the doer, the decision and the execution is like both decisions
it's like
happen
whatever you want to call it,
domino
gentleman's
almost.
agreement or some
Yeah.
type of I will not. Like for me, biggest thing that I struggle with because I consider myself a doer is that I wrote my manuscript and didn't do the second step of really publishing.
Hmm.
Because like if you say A, you gotta do B. That's I think a doer exercise.
What
Like
is missing there?
what do you mean?
Yeah, what is missing? Why is the B missing in that scenario?
It needs more work. I haven't done the work.
Okay.
And
So you
and
don't feel it's ready.
I know it's not ready. It's not even
Okay.
how I feel. If I read it, I'm like, this book, you cannot print it yet. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, clear.
Not because of the font, just because of the
Is it
storyline.
readable?
Yeah, it's the storyline.
Okay.
Respectable. So there is this level of I want it to be good enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When is it good enough? Well, when you're satisfied with it. But right now, I'm not satisfied with some parts. I am, other parts I'm not. But
But you
I
also haven't done anything
no,
with
I
it.
did not do the work because I felt stuck, or I was overthinking it, or I did not know what to do or who to involve. I was
Mm-hmm.
reaching out to people, didn't get what I was looking for, or I just needed to breathe. And
As I said, yeah.
like Payman said to me, like it's, it's ripening, it's marinating, and
Mm.
it's gonna do it good. But I think if the difference between a doer and a thinker per se is a thinker is satisfied with thinking,
Mm.
the doer is satisfied with something being done.
Oh, I love that. That is really powerful. This the level of satisfaction
Where do you
is
feel
different.
gratified? Like, this
Done.
thing got done.
Done my work.
And yes, I know it's not the best that could have been done,
Yeah.
but it's better than nothing being done and just a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of talk and drawings.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I feel like there is this um, collaboration between these two data attitudes. Because if you're like fully doer, you can also do stupid things.
Yeah.
You know, if both of
Plenty.
them to the extreme are not beneficial. I think that's one thing you learn in project management or project just execution is like what is a fair enough uh, time to give yourself for an execution to have enough time to think.
Mm-hmm.
And that's even more difficult with creative work because as you said you
Yeah.
cannot force creativity.
Yep.
um,
Sometimes you just can't.
but still deadlines or heartbeats whatever you want to call them um, allow the doer to do because if the doer doesn't have this sense of urgency that it needs to be done,
Mm.
by when is it due then?
It's pretty interesting, no?
Yeah, especially if you consider like change that comes towards you, you need to deal with it, and you might stick your head in the sand and people will point it out to you.
Yeah.
But if it's regarding things that you yourself desire, only you decide the deadline, or
Mm.
how fast you want to get there, and how much time you're going to give yourself to think and contemplate about it.
Mm.
And if it's a big, scary thing, what you say always, this eat the frog first,
Mm.
is maybe even better. Just do it horribly first
Mm.
and then improve.
Yeah. Yeah, I think also last year you makes me think, like when I wanted to launch my online shop, let's phrase it like that, and
Mm.
you've been then just press this button, just launch it. I was like, I don't have pictures, I don't have descriptions. Like, no, doesn't matter.
Mm.
Just launch it. So it is a horrible first draft, but it was online. No one gave me a call saying it's horrible. I saw it. This is what you did. Seriously, no. But it
Bad kid.
was there, so it was there to be improved.
I think it got you over the biggest hurdles. Just like my courses that got people signed up, they didn't show up, improved upon it, got people signed up, got people participating, got people paying.
Mm.
Um, you got to
Trial
deal
and
with all
error.
those insecurities
Mm.
and
Yeah.
build your confidence in that sense. So that's why I feel like the doer and thinker attitude, like the doing and thinking, are actually behaviors. The attitude is the one before it, and that has to do with how am I going to deal with my fears and all these uncertainties. Am I willing to face them head on, or do I just want to think about them between my ears?
I love that the attitude is one step ahead of that.
So
This is
before it,
so
yeah.
true. Yeah, like literally, if your ego is like whatever,
Mhm.
then I just drop it out.
If I look at the talks I gave last year, the what was it, the On the Unknown talk,
Yeah.
that Mache afterwards was like, hey, do you want to give it in Berlin for me as well?
Mm-hmm.
But maybe don't talk about going to Mars. Talk about yourself. You know?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, all these are examples of just doing it
Mm-hmm.
and improving
On the
step by
go.
step.
Yeah.
And Rich, who has seen more of my talks, is like every time I hear the same story
That's
but a
really cool.
different angle and different abilities to relate. Um, I feel comfortable speaking to people, but I am also aware that I don't have my polished TED talk yet
Mm-hmm.
because I haven't
Mm-hmm.
trained for it,
Yeah.
haven't prepped for it, haven't even thought about it. Every time I get a gig,
Mm-hmm.
I deliver a good experience for people. I improve on my talk and I take it from there.
Yeah.
While if I was like, no, this needs to be the perfect talk the first time I open
You
my
just
mouth.
never
I
start.
remember recording that video
That's that
for
little
the
pitch. Oh my
yeah
gosh.
for selling the course,
This was
and I
so
wanted it to be perfect, so I was
so funny.
typing it a million times,
And you
repeating it.
typed it like word by word, literally.
I
What you would
never do
exactly
that. I
say. You
never
never
do
do that. You
that.
super like really spot on. Just do it.
And that was a very thinking process
Mm-hmm.
that completely drained me, destroyed me, and then at some point
Mm-hmm.
I just canceled the whole
You just
video.
walked away from it for a really long
Yeah,
time.
I just didn't do it. I was just like, I'm just gonna do
Yeah.
live videos, and
Yep.
that's why I hope what people can take away from today is that the difference in attitude between these two um, outcomes, behaviors,
Mm-hmm.
is how much you're acknowledging what it is actually that you're afraid of
Mm-hmm.
in doing it, and realizing that overcoming that fear is pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's not gonna kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Might not be nice, it might not be
Mm-hmm.
pleasant, or you experience that actually, wow, it was super liberating. I did that and I got booed off stage and
It's yeah. It's
set me
whatever you
free. It
see it.
set me free.
Yeah. But you like your attitude of like maybe get burned. and like really criticize whatever, but be just like, actually this is something good because I'm gonna learn.
Mm.
If you change that perspective, then you just like not gonna put your ego in front of it and be
Mm.
like, no, 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 first let me think, let me make this thing perfect and then record it.
Mm.
No, you'll be just like, just do it.
Mm. Yeah, when they say feel fast, feel often, they
Yeah, I love
don't
that
talk
one.
about the emotional resilience and the spiritual alignment that you need to have
Mhm.
to be able to feel fast and feel often without thinking you suck as a
The
person.
spiritual alignment, this is so good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think if you're
Yep.
thinking that your self worth and value is uh, how good you perform, and if you're gonna go into
Mhm.
the feel fast, feel often lane,
You're gonna go out.
yeah, you're gonna think you suck, and then you're like, I
Mhm.
don't want to do this. Actually, I
Mhm.
just want to get nice
Shine.
green check boxes.
Yeah.
And of course, these are mind states that help entrepreneurs to achieve great improvements. But I
Mhm.
think in people's personal journeys of life,
Mhm.
there are plenty of things that we're scared of. Facing those fears requires some level of energy and stamina to be able to like take that flow and dust it off and pick yourself up again
Mhm.
and encourage yourself to keep doing that again. And I think that's the biggest attitude difference between a thinker and a doer, is that a thinker doesn't think he can dust himself off,
He
and that's
likes to
why
be
it's,
prepared for that.
it's to protect
He likes
himself.
to create a scenario for what the dust is
Yeah,
gonna be like.
yeah, or like, yeah, if this happened, will I be able to overcome it? And maybe I'll be ugly for 2 weeks, and then I'll be
Yeah.
this and that. All these things, because they associate such a high level of risk with that
Mhm.
recovery period.
Yeah,
Wow.
that falling down is such a failure
Not
on
even.
its
I
own.
think the failure, but also like how long is it gonna take me to come back from that? Like
That's what you
people,
think?
yeah, people become big thinkers and less risk takers or less doers if they burn themselves once or twice. If you,
Yeah.
I don't know, let's use
Yeah.
the example of love. Fell in love,
Mhm.
liked the person, went out, asked for a number, ended up door in your face. Okay,
Yeah.
painful.
Painful.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Ben
Super
and
painful.
Jerry's, Netflix. Don't leave the couch.
Yeah.
Next time you like a person, you're like,
Shall I
what
really
if,
do it
what
again?
if that whole thing repeats itself?
It's gonna explode in my face again.
Hmm. And that is when you become a thinker. So you're like imagining all the best ways to minimize the risk of it blowing
Mhm.
up in your face.
Yeah.
Well, if you remember, actually, last time I had a bunch of ice cream, which was pretty nice, and I came back.
Or you could also be like, hey, last time it didn't work. So that was one, but statistically, the second one is going to work because it's 50-50.
Okay,
Let's do it. Right?
the numbers game brought to you by
No, but it's a
playing the
good.
casino of love.
But it's a, yeah,
It will
plus ice
that
cream
no,
and
but that
Netflix.
attitude of like, if it goes wrong, even
Yeah.
if the statistics don't come in my way, I still will recover from it and
And
try
have some
again.
nice Netflix and ice cream.
Will determine whether you will execute on like, hey, you want to go out or you want to do
Hmm.
this
Yeah.
or not, and then you become shy or reserved or whatever.
Yeah, but kind of also to decide against. I don't know, in that particular example, maybe I'd be like, I'm gonna miss out. I might miss out on so much, if I like that person and I want to ask for a number, and if I don't dare, then I'd be like, why did my stupid ass didn't do it?
Mm.
So I'd be like, what? Like my driver almost will be to think what I'm gonna miss out on, and like beat myself up afterwards to be like, hey,
Mhm.
So I think that's also a good
Yeah, I
one.
think it's a good one to remember that the things you don't do, you might regret.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you do and you end up miserably, it might make you laugh at some point as well.
At least there is no what if.
Yeah.
So there is better to have no what
Yeah.
ifs after the fact.
Yeah. To
And
really find out.
yeah,
Yeah.
instead of like using the what if in the present and future sense.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's the biggest attitude difference. It's
Yeah.
like a doer wants to go to his grave without any what ifs.
Mm-hmm. I think this is a beautiful summary. This is really nice. I
Because the
like
thinker
that.
definitely is going to go to his grave
Ha,
with a plenty of them.
with millions of what if I have done this and decided for this option.
What if I die tomorrow? Yeah.
Yeah. What if I die and never wake up? What if I, whatever it is. Yeah.
What if all you lovely people click like and subscribe on the Love Change podcast? Tell us what you thought of the attitudes towards change, the doer
Mm-hmm.
versus the thinker. What was it? What did you call it?
Control freak?
The control freak. I don't know if it's a control freak thing.
Kind of a control in the sense of thinking about all the
Outcomes.
scenarios.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like you cannot, even if you spend I don't know how much time on thinking of scenarios, there might still be a scenario that slipped you.
I'm thinking of the scenario that everybody likes this video and shares it.
Is this a good scenario? So,
What if all of you drop us a comment and a like? Tell us
yeah,
what you thought, in which camp you belong, and why it's easy or difficult to do things,
yep.
uh, or maybe more comfortable to think about them at times.
And if you got inspired, share it on your account as well. Tag us because what we care about is really reaching more people and spread more of the love for change that we stand for.
Definitely.
Right?
You want to recap today? How do you feel?
I think it was an amazing episode. I really like the that the attitude basically comes before.
Mm.
So it's really like if you're willing, how did you call it?
Alignment?
The spiritual alignment to really be willing to just not think of like what happens to me, but to just make a decision and just
Mm.
not think like how does it gonna affect me as a person, because
Mm.
this is really an ego way of thinking, but
Mm.
to really be like, yeah, it is before, and then just yeah, make things happen. There was one that I really liked, and the other one is to really say yeah, you might miss out on things. I think this is also a beautiful perspective to help you to push through those hard things to find out,
Mm.
no matter how hard the process is going to be, but to be like, I don't want to end up not knowing what
Yeah.
could have been if
Yeah.
I haven't approached this. I think this is also a very good phrasing for the thing. So yeah, that's kind of my
I
my
think your
bottom line.
statistic
Statistic 50-50.
approach to life is actually a good one.
Statistic.
To realize the odds of your fears coming true
Yeah,
are
man.
just as much or maybe even less of the odds being in your favor,
Mm-hmm.
and even the odds being neutral, because it's not
Mhm.
always on or off, it's also sometimes somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And there are plenty of options that you cannot think of all the scenarios, you cannot perceive all the things that might have happened, and you are limited in that sense by your past experiences, thinking they will repeat, not knowing there are plenty of experiences out there that you haven't had yet. So play the statistic games.
It really also makes me think the whole statistic game is like what we talked on the weekend about with your cousin, that when he was a kid he was super scared to get hit by a tree
On the wind,
when it was windy days.
yeah.
The first thing I would do would like
How
look
big
it
are
up
those odds?
statistically, how big are the odds, and be like, no, it's not gonna happen, and then I'd be like done with this topic.
Yeah.
So sometimes that really, really helps.
Definitely. So use your brain wisely.
Yes.
Listen to your math teacher.
And the statistic one. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Love change out.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.